Hello. Charles Marsala. I actually am a resident of Orleans Parish. I am the two things I wanted to address with you guys. I'm the president of the Italian-American Federation of the Southeast, and I wanted to let you guys know I've done a documentary on Family Gras. That'll be airing on PBS coming up to help promote that as one of the things we do. We're looking to do a film festival in Jefferson Parish in the next couple of months and look to do more with Rivertown as far as developing that and honoring the Italian heritage there. I was here 3 months ago, and I do want to give you an update on West End. I did hear back, and that the trees, I'm not sure if they're going to be removed or if they're going to be trimmed, but there's 13 heritage oak trees that are on the Jefferson Parish side, and I was told that that is something that Jefferson Parish is going to address, and hopefully it's just to trim and not to remove. With that, one of the other things that's been on my mind is that we found that there's an Act 209 of 1906, which says the park can only be used for a public park or an amusement park. So right now there's going to be probably a delay in moving forward with anything regarding the development of the park. Representative Hilferty has said she's only going to allow amending it for restaurants. So the idea of putting condominiums there is not practical anymore. And that's going to be up to the state legislature if they decide to allow the amendment to happen. The seawall that's in the Jefferson Parish side of it, I've told might be the responsibility of Orleans Parish. But when they did this 3 years ago, at least the contract out, they did the seawall up until the parish line and stopped. So I don't know if it's actually even a code enforcement issue for Jefferson Parish, because with the missing parts of it, you have a safety risk. If somebody falls off, they're coming in from Jefferson Parish, they fall into the lake. There are people that crab there and fish there. So, you know, we had 17 years out. The seawall is a problem. No one is taking responsibility on the Orleans side to take care of it. So that would be great. We have had many residents talk about putting pickleball courts on the area. So if we don't go with the restaurants and the housing, because the Regional Planning Commission study showed that the area is saturated with restaurants, maybe the pickleball courts and ideas we heard earlier, that's in big demand. And again, I would still like to see the 1.3 acres become a Jefferson Parish public park and be used to educate people, because there's a pelican colony right there. Recently, you might have seen me on the news. We had Channel 8 out there. The lines that used to feed the restaurants were broken, and they've been dumping out over 500,000 gallons of water a day for who knows, whether it's 6 years or 17 years. But eventually, right now, we're trying to get that fixed. They haven't done it yet, but at least we've got that cleared up, that the New Orleans does take responsibility for the water that was free-flowing into Jefferson Parish. I'm under time. Thank you.
15, yep. You have 10 more seconds if you want them.
I'll pass.
Thank you.
If I can just add something, because this is West End is an area of great interest, obviously, to everybody. And I know I had emailed you yesterday and said I'll send some documentation to clarify. But just to point out, the parish line of Jefferson does cut through a portion of the West End site. And so the western portion of that landmass sits in the parish of Jefferson. It is not owned by the parish of Jefferson. And so similar to my house, my property sits in the parish of Jefferson. It is not owned by Jefferson Parish. And so if my house is falling apart and needs maintenance or has debris that needs to be cleared, it is not Jefferson Parish's responsibility. It is my responsibility as the property owner. So I know it gets confusing because you see a parish line and you think, oh, well, that's in Jefferson Parish. It's Jefferson's responsibility. Jefferson Parish is not a property owner in this matter, not a landowner in the matter. Orleans Parish is. And so we have certainly tried to be responsive to things that you and other residents have brought up. So with regard to the trees that sit in the Jefferson Parish proper, our Parkways Department is going to trim those trees after Mardi Gras season, after they have some availability, but we will go out and trim those trees. We are not a landowner, so we are not responsible for the debris that has collected on that site. We did, however, and kudos to one of our directors, Angela DeSoto, who made some calls, who did some digging and found out that that debris that's remaining on the property is municipal yacht harbors. We contacted them. They will be removing that debris. The broken water lines that Fox 8 did the story on, again, they were not Jefferson Parish lines. It was City of New Orleans lines, and they, I do understand, are going to address that problem. So because part of the property sits in the parish of Jefferson, obviously we have an interest, and it is the waterfront side, but I always need to point out we're not actually a landowner out there. And so while certainly we look to be supportive of that site coming back, the responsibility of a landowner and just a piece of property that happens to sit in the parish are very legally different.
Yes, I'm very much aware of that.
Because certain things we can't spend money on. So when you are saying, please do this, this, and this, our Jefferson Parish tax dollars, it would be a prohibited donation for us to be spending Jefferson Parish tax dollar resources in manners that are not appropriate. So we can't go fix New Orleans lines. We can't move municipal yacht harbors, junk and debris. So I appreciate the passion that you have for the site. Many of these issues, it may be better to voice them to the New Orleans Council. Please rest assured Jefferson is doing everything we can to support and everything we can to be responsive, but we also have an obligation to our taxpayers to know where the line is drawn legally as to what we can do and what we can't do.
Well, and I've researched this a lot. So the restaurants that were on the Jefferson Parish side, Jefferson Parish got the tax revenue for that. And you entered those from this part that you're now saying it was Arlene's. So I just want to be clarified that is actually Arlene's parks that you're saying is not Jefferson Parish responsibility, even though that was where the front doors to the restaurants that were considered Jefferson Parish tax revenue were.
So that's different because those used to be out over the water. So those restaurants sat on leases leased by the state of Louisiana, not Jefferson Parish. So the state of Louisiana let those leased spaces on the water. I believe Jefferson did supply water at one time, so we would have been paid for the water that we supplied. But again, it actually would be the state that would be getting the income from those leases. In the future, things will not be built over the water in the same manner. And again, when you ask that Jefferson Parish would make that property a recreational property of Jefferson Parish and somehow pay to build it out and maintain it, again, it's not our land. So I know you're looking puzzled, but you can't come build on my property. I own the property. Orleans owns that property. And so Jefferson cannot make it a park of Jefferson Parish and spend Jefferson Parish tax dollars on something that is Orleans Parish's.
Why do you guys have a sign that says entering Jefferson Parish?
Because the parish of Jefferson, 2 blocks from my house, there is a sign that says entering Jefferson Parish. My home sits in Jefferson Parish. It's the same thing. There is a sign that says this is where Jefferson Parish begins. And so that westward portion of West End sits in Jefferson Parish. But just like my home, it's not owned by Jefferson Parish.
It's not the responsibility of Jefferson Parish.
It just sits in Jefferson Parish, just like my home. So if my home is deplorable, Jefferson Parish, since it sits in Jefferson Parish, would cite me and would keep on me until I clean it. So there's a portion of that property that sits in the parish of Jefferson, and that's why we've done some outreach to try and make sure it gets cleaned up. But we're not actually the landowner, and those are 2 very different things. So I can't make it a Jefferson Parish park.
So somebody else can get a permit to build on the Jefferson Parish side because it's not Jefferson Parish.
We will actually, if anything is permitted or asked to require a permit for construction that sits in Jefferson Parish, it would be treated just like me. I built a home in Jefferson Parish. I would have to go to Jefferson Parish's code department if I'm building on a property located within Jefferson Parish. If they're building on the Orleans side, they would go to Orleans. Now, part of what we've talked about is because nobody wants to deal probably with 2 governments when we're doing something like code, we will ultimately figure out cooperatively a structure that will streamline it. But they're 2 different things, and I know it's sometimes difficult to keep those straight, but ownership is different than just located in.
With that, can we wrap it up? So y'all can go back and forth on this all day.
I look forward to following up with you.
Maybe coffee.
I've been trying to do that for a while.
Thank you.
Al Morello, 4260 East Royal.